Trojan fans, welcome to another edition of the Peristyle Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham. I'm joined in studio by Mr. Triple Double himself. Connor Morrissette is here next to me. Follow him on Twitter at @C_Morrissette. And you get those triple doubles of letters in there. MORRISSETTE. What's up, Connor? How you doing, man?
Doing well. Big news on the quarterback front at USC, making a change. And no game this week, but we'll see Jayden Maiava moving forward. Pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting. So we're going to talk about all that. We've got an exciting show for you today. No game this weekend for USC. We'll talk a little maybe about what happened in the game up in Seattle against Washington. But really the breaking news that Connor talked about, we'll jump into that too. Before we do all that, I just want to let everyone know you can get a hold of us by emailing us podcast@uscfootball.com, or you can call or text us at 424-254-9141. That's our number. You can leave us a voicemail, or you can shoot us a text. We love all those. It's always fun to hear from everyone out there. Whenever we travel, we get to hear from a lot of you, see people in the security lines, on the planes, wherever we are. So thank you for everyone that's come up and said hello. It does make our day when we get to talk to all of you. You can also rate the show if you have Spotify or the Apple Podcasting app. 5 stars is awesome. We would love that. And if you have the Apple Podcasting app, you can leave us a review. I want to see if we got any new ones. Yeah, we got some new ones. Nice. So I wanted to give away some Trader Joe's gift cards. So we'll talk about Trader Joe's in a second. But I'll read the reviews. And Connor, you got to pick your favorite one.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
We'll do that. Superstar podcasters and superstar people inside and out. I've been listening to Ryan and team for 8 years. The insights and knowledge they bring every week make me feel as if I'm on the sideline with the team. I've attended some of their meetups with my family. We're always greeted with a smile and genuine conversation, whether football related or not. I love this podcast and group of people. They work hard and deserve every success that comes their way. Fight on.
Oh, that'll be tough to beat.
That's Mars Girl Mom. Oh, thanks. That's so nice. Thank you so much. This is from Mark95 in Nevada. That was going to be a tough one to beat. Peristyle Podcast got me. Hey, just got a new Trader Joe's near me, and Ryan said leave a 5-star review. Any review? So here I am. I won't be calling you ugly though. Sorry. Okay, yeah. We said you could. That's more of a Podcast of Champions thing. We have them leave us a 5-star review, and then they just destroy us and like how terrible we are and why the show is bad. That's sort of like our little gimmick over there. So we don't have to do that here. We like nice things, but if you wanted to, you could do that. And then we also got Garakawa Triple Double Podcast. Great addition to the podcast family. This one can't win. It's always hard to find info regarding USC men's and women hoops and a sea of football coverage. Now that football season is officially a joke, I'm so excited to watch 2 teams with great coaching. This podcast is awesome. Keep it up. That was very sweet. I mean, the first
3
one.
Great reviews, but yeah, the first one definitely wins.
Why don't we do this? Okay. If you left a review, drop me an email, Ryan@uscfootball.com, and I will send you all a Trader Joe's gift card. So how's that?
Wow, everybody wins.
Everyone's going to win today. This is going to be a winner day. We're trying to make this a positive one. We have some positive things happening. And so thank you everyone for tuning in. We got a lot of comments in the chat. We enjoy the meetups. Thanks for having them. Yeah, Ted, thank you. I'll put that up there. The meetups are a lot of fun, and that's kind of a new tradition. Like every away game, we host a meetup on like the Friday before the game. So yeah, that's they're fun to do, and there's fun. We've met a lot of really cool people. We've had repeat guests come in. They've done multiple meetups, so we appreciate everyone that does that. We also appreciate Trader Joe's, like I mentioned. So John Abrea, he's been awesome. Sends us some Trader Joe's gift cards, mostly for the Podcast of Champions, but we have a bunch of extras, so I'm going to give some away here too. So, and since they've been a sponsor for the show for several years, go over to TraderJoe's.com. It is November. Can you believe that?
Time flies.
You know what's awesome in November? You got to go get the Fearless Flyer at TraderJoe's.com for November, because it's the Thanksgiving guide, the best meal of the year. Go get your turkeys there. So many cool different sides, fixings, everything you want to know about Thanksgiving, maybe things you didn't want to know, things that you didn't know you needed on your Thanksgiving table, and all through the month of November. Go to check out the Fearless Flyer guide. So it's already good stuff. I'm seeing some of those holiday nuts, nuts about rosemary mix. Of course, the turkeys are out there. They give you a good guide on how to roast the turkey. I deep fry mine, but if you want to roast that, and different snacks, you got to make sandwiches, like leftover sandwiches. They give you some advice on that. A lot of cool stuff over at TraderJoe's.com. So go check it out. You can follow them on Instagram too. They do some cool stuff over there. All right. One other thing before we get into the breaking news, but there is going to be, so you know about the new football facilities coming. There's going to be a groundbreaking ceremony at USC tomorrow, which is Thursday, November 7th. And it's for donors, so it's not like an open to the public thing, but the media is going to come, are allowed to come. So Connor will be over there. I'm doing another podcast, so I won't be able to go down, but he can take some shots for social media and stuff and check it out. But Lincoln Riley, Carol Folt, Jen Cohen, they'll all be down there. And, I don't know if they're going to put a shovel in the ground, whatever they do. There'll be some groundbreaking ceremony. And we're hearing some good news about fundraising for the new football facility. So that's really going to kick things off. I know everyone around the program is excited for that. So make sure you follow Connor. He'll have some stuff on that.
What was one of the biggest things that we heard about Jen Cohen when she was hired? She's an excellent fundraiser. And so Carol Folt is expected to make a surprise announcement tomorrow. And we are expecting it to be donor related. And Jen Cohen, it sounds like, deserves a lot of credit for what she's been able to do to fundraise related to this new facility. So she's doing a good job with that. And we'll have all the details tomorrow.
All right. Ted in the chat says, I got to try deep fried turkey. Bring some to a tailgate. I love deep fried turkey, and it's very good. I don't know if there's going to be a tailgating opportunity for that.
Notre Dame game?
Yeah, maybe. I could probably bring some, bring it over there. But I think I was introduced to it. So our buddy Dan, not Dan Weber, that writes for it, but when we used to do the tailgate parties way back in the day, I mean, this is like 20 years ago or something. I think for a Thanksgiving game, he brought some fryers and deep fried turkeys like on campus. And it was so good. And then I think I immediately bought a fryer after that. And every year since, I've been deep frying turkeys for Thanksgiving. So it's awesome. It's just 45 minutes for like a 15-pound turkey. So freaking juicy. I like to inject it with a little bit of like butter white wine mix, maybe a little garlic powder and stuff, but inject the meat around, and you like tie the legs and wings, so it's all together. It doesn't like flap out, and you got to like lower it you get the oil like 300. I try to get to 400 because you want it between like 350 and 4. I think 4 is like the max. But once you drop the turkey in, you got to do it real slow because it'll like bubble and bubble and bubble and stuff. Once you get it in, then the temperature drops and you have to like play with it to try to get it back up. So you want it to like stick at like the 375 for the entire 45 minutes, but it's really hard because you turn it up and it's too high or too low. But it's a little bit of an art, but I love it. Have you ever had it before, Connor? Or?
No, never. It sounds like you've got it down, though. So if you bring some for Ted for the Notre Dame game, I'll have some too.
I'll bring some out, yeah. Yes, but go check out Trader Joe's for all that stuff. I will buy my turkey over at Trader Joe's, of course, because that's what you got to do. All right, so the big breaking news is USC has a new QB1. Now, how do we know this? Well, the guy sitting next to me, Connor Morrissette, the one that told you. He broke the news Monday night, was it? Was it Monday night? Or what night was it?
Monday night, but it was a team effort. It wasn't just me. It was everyone at USCfootball.com chipped in, and that's the beauty of having the staff that we do, Ryan. I feel bad for some of the reporters who it's just them. Having a team, that's really helped us this year, and it's why you should subscribe to USCfootball.com. We had the Bayer Alexander news first, Miller Moss benching first. Who knows what we'll have first next? Yeah, no, that's I appreciate it. It's funny being on a text thread where it's like that's how it sort of works. Like just because you hear something, you don't just write a story and like, oh, this is going on. And especially if it's something like this, it's pretty big. We had our group thread going, and everyone's talking to their sources to see. And once we had enough, it was a lot of confirmation. And so then it was like, all right, we feel we can go with it. And then I think Pete Thamel came out, later on that evening or maybe the next morning and confirmed your report, and some other reporters had done the same thing. And then on Tuesday, Lincoln Riley addressed it and talked about it and stuff too. So, but good work. Yeah, it was a team thing, but way to get the story out there
Connor. But yeah, I don't know if you want to start with like what Lincoln Riley said yesterday, and then we can kind of go on from there.
Sure. Well, Riley talked about how this wasn't a move made for the future, but I don't know how it can't be. Imagine if USC finishes this season 6-6 or even 7-5, which is the best case scenario for the regular season, and you're Jayden Maiava. You transferred from UNLV to USC looking for better competition. The team doesn't have a very good year, and you still can't get on the field. He's gone if USC hadn't played him this season. So Riley, I think, is feeling the pressure in that regard. And say Maiava comes out and plays really well here the rest of the regular season, it looks like USC will have their QB1 for next year. Julian Lewis, if he ends up signing, will certainly factor in. There will be a competition. It won't just be handed to Maiava. But these next 3 games, for as much as we can focus on this season, this is about the future to me, because imagine if Maiava hadn't played, maybe Miller Moss comes back and you have one more year with him. But if Maiava is better than Moss, and it looks like there's a chance that he will be, you needed to make this move now to give USC fans and just to give the team and just get people back in and get people excited. And you needed to do it to prevent Maiava from leaving. And imagine if he leaves and then lights it up somewhere else, then the quarterback guru, all of a sudden, Lincoln Riley, doesn't look so good. So this was a move, in my opinion, that needed to be made at this time. And for as much as Riley wants to say it's not about the future, to me, that's where I start. It absolutely is.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we don't get to see practice, and even less now than what we could before. But we were hearing good things about how Maiava was progressing, and we would ask Lincoln Riley every week in practice. And to be clear, I know there's a lot of people that are just completely hating on Miller Moss, that he's terrible and all these things. I think they've been pretty unfair to him. His first 2 starts were against ranked teams and they won. I don't think it did him any favors that USC threw the ball 50 times against Washington. That wasn't the right game plan, and you shouldn't have done it. If Jayden Maiava is that throwing 50 times, I'm guessing the same result. We'll see. We'll see what we get when we get to watch him go against Nebraska and potentially UCLA and Notre Dame. But it's not really fair there. But I think once USC got to 3-4, if you trust Riley with quarterbacks, if he felt that Moss would give you the best chance to win, we were just rolling with, hey, that's what Lincoln, he knows what's going on here. There wasn't any loyalty to Moss because he didn't recruit him or anything. I mean, it's the same sort of thing. He recruited Maiava. He didn't recruit Moss. And so you just kind of trust Lincoln Riley knows what's going on with the quarterbacks. But then once you get to 3-4, you're like, all right, well, your season's screwed. It's a wasted. Now you need to look about the future. And if you think there's this potential for upside with Maiava, you got to take a look at it. So that's kind of been our feeling the last few weeks. And then, like you said, you're 4-5, like, you need something. You need a spark. Even if Miller Moss is the way better option in Lincoln Riley's mind, like, you have to make a change and do something. And it's sort of like he gets to be the scapegoat or whatever, but there's no hope in the fan base right now. This is the only thing that would give the fans hope.
Riley's not going to fire himself. He needed to make a change. He wasn't going to leave. That was never an option. So I'm with you on that. A change needed to be made. And I just start with some of the play calls and some of the game plans. Like, to your point about Miller Moss sort of being unfairly treated, the Washington game, he did not play very well. I still felt like he played better than a lot of people thought, but hey, 3 interceptions. It's tough to come back from that. So the time makes a lot of sense. But to see people on our message board like, oh, he's Davis Warren, Michigan has a better quarterback room than what USC has in their starter. Like, Michigan, let's get something straight, would kill to have Miller Moss as their starting quarterback. Imagine how talented that offense would be when they'd rely on the run and then they'd have a competent passer when they needed to throw the ball in passing situations. Like, they don't have that. So just people take it too far. And I think if it was up to Riley and just forget about Maiava, like, forget about the future, I think he still would play Miller if it was up to him, and he could really do whatever he wanted. But he is, like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. He, of course, can do whatever he wants. He gets paid all this money. He's not going anywhere. But I still feel like he really likes what Miller's brought. And we heard from those comments yesterday, like, he really stuck up for Miller. And let me pull it up here. Miller Moss has done a really good job for us. You could literally not change one thing that Miller's done, and we could be sitting here with a really, really good record right now. Miller has done a really good job. He's been a really good leader for this team. He's been loyal to this program. He's worked hard. He just went on and on about how good of a job Miller's done, but because of these other factors that I mentioned early and some of them that you talked about, Ryan, like, a move needed to be made. If they had won more games, which they should have, like, Miller's still going to be here. And where does the blame lie for USC not winning as many games as they should? Moss certainly shoulders some of it, but I think Riley should shoulder more of it. And like I said to begin this long-winded point, he's not going to fire himself, so he needed to make a change.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. We got a bunch of comments in the chat. Terrence, it's time for Jayden to play. He may be the best fit for Lincoln Riley's offense. And that's what's funny. That's like a lot of people have been saying for so long. And that's the wild thing for me, for everyone to be saying, look at Lincoln Riley's offense. This player fits it much better than this player. And like, you would think Lincoln Riley knows his offense better than anybody, but there's a lot of people out there that were just convinced that Moss isn't a fit for his offense and Jayden Maiava is, even when Lincoln Riley felt differently about his own offense.
I'm with you too with that. It was funny, but I do think having a running quarterback in the traditional sense of the Lincoln Riley offense helps. But
sure.
Looking at this season, I just don't really feel like Riley played up to Moss's strengths as much as he should have. And then people will say, oh, well, like, what strengths are you talking about? Like, they really struggled to run the ball early in the year, and Moss bailed them out against LSU, throwing all those passes, and they won. And then against Utah State, that was just Utah State. But they really didn't run the ball consistently well until that Minnesota game. And what was the big critique on Riley starting with that Minnesota game? Run the ball more, run the ball more, run the ball more. And for whatever reason, he just continued to pass. 50 passes against Maryland, 50 passes against Washington. Like, the time to change the offense, it had evolved during the season, was back then. Like, you pretty much got as much as you could out of having Moss throw it a million times a game because the tape was out and defenses started to adjust. But then that opened up the run game, and for whatever reason, Lincoln Riley didn't adjust how he called his plays, how he runs his offense, and I kind of feel like he hung Miller Moss out to dry a little bit. I know Miller's camp feels that way too. So the time is correct to make this move, and I think it is the right move. But if in like going backwards, if we could do some things over again and Lincoln Riley just changed the way he ran his offense, I think Miller's a fine quarterback, and USC could be in a way better position than they are right now. So he's the scapegoat here, and he has made some mistakes. This is the right move. But I think Riley still, for this year, being 4-5, like, is it the coach or the quarterback the bigger reason behind USC being 4-5? For me, it's the coach.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could do a little rant, maybe. We've had a lot of people upset with us, upset with Lincoln Riley, they've wanted to see this change for a very long time. And I think this is, the right move to make. I mean, the way USC, they're 4-5, even if you think Miller Moss is the better option, you have to change something. You need to go with Jayden Maiava. You have to give the team hope. But just a message for some of the USC fans that have been like, hey, he's terrible. USC shouldn't have him as the quarterback. He's not even a Mountain West quarterback. That kind of stuff. If you look at the system, there's problems with this USC team. And it's concerning because Lincoln Riley, as Connor pointed out before, went 55-10 when he was at Oklahoma. In his last 16 games, he's 6-10. So 49 less wins and the same amount of losses. That is nowhere near the standard of what you want to pay a top 4, whatever, head coach in the salary. That's not good enough at USC or anywhere. It isn't good enough. And the problem is, like, if you feel like now that you've swapped quarterbacks, this is going to fix everything. It's like, if we want a food analogy, we have this restaurant and it's got like high-end food and everything is too salty. It's just lately, it's all been too salty, and people are going in there leaving weird reviews, and it's like, wow, this is good. Oh man, that's like, it's just way over salted. What's going on here? And then you're like, okay, we'll just have a meeting, and you're looking at the menu going, we don't have veal. Let's add veal, because now if we have veal, that's like, this is like an Italian neighborhood. They're going to love this. We need veal on the menu. Well, you didn't address like the over saltiness of you did something that like, oh, well, we're going to add this enhancement. It's going to be much better. I don't know. Maybe it's going to be a great veal dish, but there's so much, like the overall saltiness of what you're serving is the real problem. So I think it's nice that USC is going to have like veal out there now. But are they going to throw it 50 times? Because a lot of people said in the chat, you're going to have the same problems. So I think some of the issues we've cleaned that, we've seen them clean up a lot of stuff on the defensive side. I don't think they have the bodies there, the depth and all that stuff. But on the offensive side, that's been the most concerning because that's why Lincoln Riley get paid what he did because of the offensive acumen that he has. And I think there's a lot of other issues besides just swapping out the quarterback. Maybe it's the spark you need and it sort of fixes some of the other problems and the food gets less salty because you put the veal on the menu. But that's not a guarantee. So I feel bad for Moss for getting, there's kind of a scapegoat thing happening. Some of it's his, but some of it's, not in his control. And for Jayden Maiava, holy crap, like if he doesn't perform well, I think you could give the same reasons, that Moss wasn't performing well. Like it wouldn't be his fault either. So I just caution people that just think like, because you put in a different quarterback, all the problems are fixed. The food could still be pretty salty, and that would be a very salty ending to what's been a really terrible season so far.
I will say, if the offensive line pass blocks the way they did against Washington, there were plays where Moss had a lot of time, and sometimes he'd complete passes, but other times those talented Washington defensive backs would just cover the USC receivers well, and no one would be open. And that's an opportunity where Jayden Maiava, if he's in that situation, he can take off and run. And USC's offense was just missing that in a big way.
Yeah.
So that'll really help. But Miller probably shouldn't have been dropping back 50 times. Like, they should have been running the ball more, and he probably shouldn't have been in as many of those positions as he was, which is such a big surprise. And one last thing with Moss, going back to the Michigan game, through the bad pick six, he was so good in that second half.
That comeback was amazing.
Leading USC back against that defense in that hostile environment. Do you remember how desperate Michigan was at that point, and they just had made their quarterback change, which it looked like maybe gave them a little bit of a spark, although they just handed the ball off in the first half. And then in the second half, they really couldn't move the ball at all until the end, so that spark kind of went away. But he was nails in that second half outside of
the one bad
pick
play.
six.
But the fact that he recovered from that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it put him in a position to win the game. And I just think from that point on, we haven't really seen the same Miller Moss. And I think because he was getting the crap kicked out of him in that game, he lost his confidence. And it's the quarterback's job to get his confidence back. But look at the environment that he was in, and look at what the coaching staff is calling the plays that he's being asked to run, where he's just throw. So I don't think that he was managed very well after that game. And I mean, Riley even acknowledged that he didn't call up the best offensive line, like blocking schemes in that game, and he made some mistakes. So, like, again, I just go back to the coach. I think if you had a coach who understood that the running game as time has gone on here is the strength of his offense and didn't feel the need to pass it. And yes, they're option plays, but I hate that defense. Like, they can run the ball more. They can call up plays that are no option and just run.
Yeah.
Things could have been a lot different this season. The defense is competent. The defense is better. And there's a path with the talent that they have on offense to winning more of these games if they change some of the plays. So has Moss been good in crunch time when he's needed to be? No, and that's a problem too. But USC, they should have been in positions where they didn't need to necessarily come back in a lot of these games if the offense was called properly. We can move on to talk more about Jayden now, because I know people are already going to get frustrated about all this Moss talk. But I really believe that if there was a different leader leading this team, I think they'd be in a lot better spot.
I want to get to one of your points there, but real quick, what about the salty analogies? That I just came up with that today. Is that no? Did it work or no? Did it fail?
I think it worked.
It's like,
I don't like. Does
you could say it doesn't? That's
no,
fine.
no. I mean, does having this new dish work? Like, does it make everything less salty? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
And I guess was that the point? Because then you kind of said maybe it does, but I don't know how.
Well, that's like maybe like is the new dish. Everyone's like, ooh, and they forget that the filet was overly seasoned, Andrew wants me to explain it using Trader Joe's. I don't think we're going to do that. But if you remember, like the last couple of years, this is what's concerning. Alex Grinch had a good semblance of talent, and you just felt like he never put guys in the best position to succeed. He was doing his thing, and guys were looking at their wristband as the ball's being snapped, trying to figure out, and he never adjusted to, like, they don't know what you're doing. Like, you need to get them in a position to be successful. And I think a lot of good players weren't, and you feel bad. And I think the same thing sort of happened on the offensive side of the ball, not just with like Miller Moss. Like when you have like Lake McCree catching like pass at the line of scrimmage where he's running sideways. Like, I don't think that helps him. Or Zachariah Branch trying to, contested catches on, sideline routes. And I feel like for whatever reason, we're not seeing the same sort of, it's not, usually it's like a very quarterback friendly offense. And there's been some really good things, but there's just been some bad ones that you're wondering if Riley is putting these guys, including Miller Moss, in positions to succeed.
That's how I feel too.
Yeah.
Moving forward with Jayden Maiava.
Yes.
Nebraska, we all watched that Ohio State game where they played Ohio State really close at home. Their defense, they didn't look great against UCLA, but they did a nice job against Ohio State the week before. They're coming off a bye. UCLA's defense has looked pretty solid at times this season. And then Notre Dame, we all know how good of a defense that is. That's the strength of their team, a top 10 team in the country. What I like about this move, just from a can Maiava play or can he not? Like, we're going to know because he's going to go up against three defenses here that are probably the best defenses. I guess he took some snaps against Michigan last season, so he didn't start that game, but he did play against the best defense in the country a year ago. But as a starter here, he's going to go up against three really good defenses, the best defenses that he started against in his career, and we'll see how well the coaching staff prepares him. We'll see what everything looks like, and we should get a firm answer. It's only 3 games, but we should get a firm answer. Is this someone who USC fans and the coaches are going to be comfortable with for next season, or did they have to go back to the drawing board again? And I like that part of this season here, just from a reporting standpoint, just from like a talk show standpoint. We're going to have a lot that we can go over here, and that's fun.
Yeah, that will be a lot of fun. You need something, right? I think the end of last season when Alex Grinch got fired, it was sort of like, oh, okay, you need a spark. Like, you're sort of the same spot. Like, you're in the doldrums. The season is a complete and utter disaster, a wasted season, like I'd said before on Tunnel Vision. Here's something. Here's a little something to sort of get some kind of spark and potentially, the most important thing is winning games. But you need, the fans are going to be checked out. We see it, just from our site and the shows and everything. We had a lot of people on a Tunnel Vision show Sunday night, but after a loss, it can be like that. But, it's a bye week. People can check out. So this sort of gets a little juice going. Terrence says we have to learn how to adapt to the type of talent we have. Lincoln has to be more flexible. I would say Lincoln Riley and flexibility are not, you wouldn't find them on the same page in the dictionary, or the Wikipedia page wouldn't have that.
No, and early in the Washington game, Ryan, when Miller threw that first interception that was a little bit ahead of the receiver, Kyle Ford, we saw Riley not really being flexible. For whatever reason, Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon didn't play on offense on USC's first 2 offensive drives. So,
okay,
if for whatever reason they're not available to start the series, or maybe the coaches thought these other receivers gave them a better matchup, or I don't know why they weren't out there. The point I'm trying to make is, if you don't have those guys for whatever reason, maybe run the ball more because you're down 2 of your top receivers. So that, to me, is an example. If those guys aren't playing and that's the game plan, then maybe run it more and don't put yourself in a position where you might turn the ball over. I felt like they were without their 2 best passing option, or 2 of their best receiving options early in that game, and Riley still said, "I'm going to throw the ball.
I was going to say,
I'm going to do what I do." And is that an example of putting Miller Moss in a position to succeed? Hell no.
No, that is so funny. Oh, by the way, for whatever reason, your 2 best receivers aren't in the game. Throw the ball more. What? It was almost, it's like defiant, Fat Bank in the chat.
Your favorite.
He's my favorite guy. Did program killer open practices. And he's calling Lincoln Riley program killer or killer, which is funny. I did see a meme where, it might have been like a national writer where they're has one coach tanked 2 blue blood programs at one time? Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma pretty much tanked Oklahoma, and then insinuating that he sort of tanked, USC was already in the tank, but so he's kind of.
They did go 11-1 that first year.
They did, yes.
They were a win away from the playoff, but I mean.
But they're in the
tank now.
They're in the tank now. Oklahoma's in the tank now, and all of it was if Lincoln Riley was still at Oklahoma, they're probably still winning a bunch of games, right? I would assume, even going into the SEC.
Well, is Alex Grinch the defensive coordinator?
That's true. That could be different, but it was working there. But that was the Big 12, so who knows? It might be different in the SEC.
Practices are not open, though, to answer the question. Which I'm disappointed this week because Would Mason Murphy be with that first team offensive line on Wednesday? Today was the day where we would usually see that first team offensive line go up against the scout team defense. And maybe Tobias Raymond is out there because 4 false starts, probably could have been 8 false starts. I rewatched the game yesterday. The announcers were all over poor Mason Murphy, but unfortunately it was deserved. He was just consistently moving early. Like, if that doesn't get you benched, he had a pretty good game blocking-wise outside of the last play of the game.
Yeah.
But, like, between that last play and then 4 false starts, like, why not go with Raymond or go with someone else at this point? You kind of know what you got with Murphy, and we could write a story, and we could see, like, if they are going to make a change, but all for naught, unfortunately.
Okay. This is some ridiculous crap in the chat. And Fatback, I've tried to entertain you sometimes. This is the stupidest thing, one of them that you've said. Do we still have blue blood status? Like, do you understand what blue blood is? It's not like you have a bad day and you're no longer a blue blood. Like, Nebraska hasn't made a bowl game since 2016. And a lot of people still consider them a blue blood program. I mean, they won national championships in the 90s. They were a very dominant program for a long time. It's more about your history. You can lose it. It's harder to get it. Like, Oregon's not a blue blood. They're trying to get there. If they win a championship this year, that'll help. I mean,
no, you got to win a bunch.
Yeah, but like, USC doesn't lose blue blood status because they had a bad season. So sorry. I know you want to be overly dramatic. We'll let you. I mean, Lincoln Riley has failed this team the last 2 years. He's failed the team. Doesn't mean USC is not a blue blood program. So there's both things can be true.
I agree.
Yeah, we had Terrence, seems very reasonable in the chat. He says, oh wait, sorry, I put the wrong one up. He says, Mason Murphy should have been benched. And, you know, from what Chris reported in the Ghost Notes, or was that?
Yeah, Henson was yelling at him. But remember when Mason Murphy went off for one play against Maryland, what happened? Tobias Raymond didn't block either guy who blitzed, and Miller Moss got almost decapitated. So I don't think they have a lot of confidence in their backup. So
yeah.
If they had someone back there, I don't know, maybe from the transfer portal or maybe a bigger time recruit who they could have recruited. Like, they have a bunch of guys behind them who just aren't ready to go either. So it's another failing of this season. And the offensive line has played better. But for some reason, in the biggest moments when you need them most, they've let you down. And we saw that in the 4th down play at the end of that Washington game. Miller Moss didn't have a chance there. Speed has given them problems. Like, okay, another quick tangent. Like,
oh, go ahead.
The tackles, they're massive. Speedy edge rushers have given them trouble this year because they can just go right by, and these bigger guys have trouble moving. So you'd think that if you have these massive offensive linemen who, against speedy edge rushers, don't always do that well, maybe that would lead you to run the ball more because they're bigger than those guys and they can push them forward. But when they're asked to, like, retreat, we saw the smaller linebacker for Washington, Holtzclaw, in that last play go right around Mason Murphy, and Miller Moss never had a chance on that 4th down play. So
who was the defender that had like 2 interceptions and 12
Carson Bruner?
Yeah, 12 tackles.
The linebacker. Yeah, he had a great game.
I mean, like, you can't let that kind of stuff happen. But I mean, honestly, and Shotgun posted some information about USC and the tackling numbers, and I think 6 years in a row, USC's averaged double-digit missed tackles, and right now it's like 8 point something. So, like, that's been improved. I think the defense is still better. I think that's a thing where there's not the horses there. Eric Gentry's still leading the team in tackles for loss by a bunch, right? You know, so I think there's some problems there, like personnel-wise.
But they don't have the talent.
But in general, like, the defense is more fundamentally sound.
Oh, 1,000%, 1,000,000%. And if Greedy Vance doesn't get that just very frustrating, unnecessary roughness, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, whatever it was, that gave Washington pretty much gifted him a touchdown. Like, there was a chance USC held Washington to no points in that second half because I assumed that it was like 3rd and maybe 4 or 6, and then maybe they go for it being so close to the end zone. Who knows what would have happened, but that penalty gave them 1st and goal, and they punched it in on the next play. Like, they didn't have a great first half, but they had a really good second half, and it could have been even better if that one penalty didn't happen.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Well, anything else? I mean, it's a bye. So what we're not going to do a Tunnel Vision show Thursday night because there's no game to preview. I guess not Sunday either because there's no game to recap. But we'll keep doing our shows and, doing this. If you have questions and stuff, please send them in. We'll get you as much information as we can about this new QB1 and his status and what we're hearing, if practices are different, if he's feeling good. I got to get that light fixed. One of the lights in here keeps going out, so it changes the lighting. But yeah, anything else you want to bring up from practice? I know Denton Lynn spoke yesterday too.
Yeah, he only spoke for like 2 minutes, and then there was like a lull, and then it just ended, which was kind of disappointing. I was about to ask a question, and then that's it. Thanks. So no, the biggest thing was Riley from yesterday. I mean, Lynn, like at this point, what can you say? Like they don't have enough sacks. Like I feel like he's doing a pretty good job with what he has been given. I was going to ask, like, what grade would you give the defensive coaches so far? But I don't know how he would have answered that. It's like the whole reason this season, like for the most part, isn't happening or going the way most people thought it would. It's the offense. Lincoln Riley historically has these great offenses, and this year's offense hasn't been close. And again, the quarterback certainly deserves some blame for that, but you got to know your personnel. And we'll see, like, Lincoln Riley's kind of in a lose-lose here, where if Jayden Maiava comes in and dominates, then it's like, oh, why don't you go to this guy earlier? And if he doesn't play well, then, that doesn't look good either, because it's continuing this trend here where USC just isn't living up to the expectations that people had. So winning is always the better option. So if he comes out and plays really well, yeah, people will be frustrated, but at least they're winning games. So that's another part here where he's just kind of consistently not done himself any favors, going back to Alex Grinch and now this season with the quarterback stuff. The moves have either not happened or just been too late.
Yep. All right. Well, let's take a break. We got some questions to get to. If you're watching us live, we're actually live on Facebook right now too. So if you have a question, you want to put it in the chat, just put question in there. I know I got one or two already, so I will answer those. And we got some other emails and texts to get to. So back in a minute, everyone. All righty, we're back here on the Peristyle Podcast. I think we have one question in the chat. Let's get to that. And if you have other ones, put them in there, and then I'll get to some of these emails and stuff too. No voicemails this week. Why make a quarterback change now when a spark has been needed since the Minnesota game? I know Lincoln Riley wants to see what he has with Jayden Maiava, but if he waited this long, Jayden Maiava must not be much better than Moss.
That's a fair question to ask, and that's a fair takeaway. Like, it's not like Moss has been lighting it up since the Minnesota game. So just why make the change now? We sort of went over that earlier. You have nothing to lose here. You have everything to lose with Maiava, but in terms of the season, like, you have nothing to lose going forward when USC here is 4-5. But I don't know, like, when was a benching really warranted other than after Washington? Like, some people thought it was going to happen after Maryland, and I went back and watched that game, and the interception wasn't good, but I thought he played fine. That's sort of what's tough, and Riley addressed it yesterday. Like, it's not like Miller has been playing so poorly where it's been this easy choice, and sometimes I talk about how I don't trust what Riley says. I do trust him with that. He said, this was tough. I've been part of a few of these competitions. It's never easy. There's nothing easy about it, especially when you've got a guy that's worked hard and has done a lot of really good things. I've had times where it's been easier where the guy just isn't playing very well at all and the team's getting blown out. That's when it's painfully obvious. Ones like this where it's a tough call, it's tough. So that's sort of part of it too. It's like there was no breaking point. There was no low point where it's like, okay, there's no way he can come back from this. And that has played a role here too. Like the Minnesota game, that first interception he threw, does anyone remember what happened? Like Mason Murphy, it would have been maybe better if he wasn't out there, because like maybe the guy trips or something. I don't like, that was just brutal. And then he throws an interception.
It was better if he wasn't.
Like he just missed his guy, and then that
was bad. It was terrible.
That's when it all came falling apart. Like, is that on the quarterback?
No, he's had some picks that weren't on him, but
he certainly had some that are. So
right,
but like that's part of it too. But yeah, I mean,
I think that your point being like, if there was no outside pressure, does Lincoln Riley just stick with Miller?
Yeah, that's kind of what I didn't say that, and that's what I meant to say. So thank you.
No, and I feel like that's, Jake, for your question. Thank you. I think that's a lot of what's going on here. It wasn't like this is finally the moment you have to bench Miller Moss. Like a lot fans have wanted this for a while. And in Lincoln Riley's mind, we don't know how good or bad or comparable those two were in practice. After we don't get to see much, we could see him throw balls and stuff. And we know he's big and got a live arm and can run. And, but we talked to him in the spring and he said that he didn't know the offense well enough and there was, progress that needed to be made. But we also started hearing that there was progress being made. So I think it's not necessarily about, well, he's not as good as Moss. He might not be, or he might be better. That's hard to say. I don't think that's why the move was made. I think it seems to be more like political, like he's got to do something to save the season.
Is it performance-based, or are you deathly afraid of losing a guy who could be a good option for you going forward?
Yeah.
So,
or the outside noise is just like too much. Like
yeah.
you got to do something, forcing you to do something. You have to do something. So he's got to pick something he doesn't want to do. I think he's a very stubborn man, right? Coaches are very stubborn. They think whatever their thoughts are what's right. And, you have absolute control pretty much when you're running a college football program and you're getting paid that much money and you can't even be fired because your buyout's so huge. But there still can be outside pressure where, okay, like, was he reluctantly doing this because people in the administration and the team, some of the initial players didn't seem like they liked the move. So, I mean, there's like some weird – it's hard, so we don't know the exact reasons why.
And two things can be true, too. Like Maiava, who I firmly believe has a higher ceiling than Miller Moss. He might be a better option for USC in the future, but he might not be the better option right now.
Right. So if you were 7-2, then you're probably sticking with Miller Moss. But so I don't think it's a thing where if they were winning, he was fine with what Miller Moss was doing. Now he could have helped Miller Moss more by just running the ball more, and the defiance. Like the defiance of everyone thinks USC should run. Washington has the best pass defense. Our two best receivers aren't in the game. I'm going to show everyone how smart I am and throw the ball more than normal. Like this should have been a run more than you normally do. Like it didn't have to be super skewed, but if you're running at 40%, make it 45 or 50. And he went the other way. And like, we're going to run less without our two best receivers and against the best pass defense in the country, which to me just screams like, this is somebody trying to prove a point. I'm not going to win. I'm going to win the way I think it should happen, as opposed to just do what you need to do to win the game. They started doing that in the second half, which tells me you knew you could do it. I mean, you could have done it, but you made the choice. It was a conscious decision. The run game wasn't working. He made a conscious decision to not run the freaking football. And it's still baffling to me that he did that.
It goes back to what PJ Fleck said. They were running it well, but we didn't feel like that's what they wanted to do, that we felt like they wanted to pass the ball. That's paraphrasing what he said. But do you remember that quote? We've talked about it a million times.
That was the most apropos quote of the entire season, when the opposing coach knows they were running the ball. They didn't want to run the ball. Like, that's basically what he was saying. Like, they were doing it, but they don't want to. And I think that was such a genuine moment. He knew, like, you could tell, coaches can read other coaches. Like, if that guy wants to do that or not. Like, it's working, but he doesn't want to do it.
Very frustrating part of this whole season for sure, because Miller is better than a benching, but here we are.
Yeah. Terrence, this is why the team is 4-5. Lincoln's stubbornness. I think you're right, but just to be fair, like when people are really good at stuff, and Lincoln Riley, I know you don't want to hear it, but he's been really good at stuff in the past. Sometimes a lot of that stubbornness kind of gets you there, and so then that was working. Like I'm sure he did a lot of the stuff now that he's done before in different situations, and it worked. And now it's not working, and you're sort of like, well, I've done this before and it worked. I was stubborn about this, and everyone thought I should run, and I threw, and we won. And it's not working now. So I think that's kind of like, how much self-assessment can you do? Because I think a lot of successful people, like, do you think Nick Saban, pretty freaking stubborn, right? I mean, had a lot of success, and I think you could have bad like character traits, but it spells success in whatever field you're in. Like, if the CEO is like nice to everybody, you're probably not a great CEO. Like sometimes you got to be a dick or whatever. But if your company is like succeeding it's okay that you're a dick. If your company's failing, HR is probably going to get involved and you might get fired. And I feel like this situation, like Lincoln Riley's stubbornness, probably led to a bunch of wins before, and it's not going there now. So I think it's a different thing where now you got to like self-assess and say, okay, well, what I did before isn't working. I need to do something different. And can you do that? Can you reflect on your own shortcomings? And I think a lot of people have a hard time doing that in this profession.
And this is why people are like, get an offensive coordinator who
yes
can help marry your personnel to what you want to run instead of this rigid, like, I'm the quarterback guy, I'm going to throw it a million times. And just, I said it earlier, but going back to like, they really struggled to run the ball earlier in the season. And they beat LSU despite not running the ball really well. They had a chance to beat Michigan. Woody Marks had that one huge run, but outside of that, they were really not running the ball very well, and they came a play away from winning that game. But, like, they got better at it, and they got a lot better at it very quickly against Minnesota. They, like, I made this point earlier, but what I'm trying to say is, like, he didn't adapt to the improvements that the roster had made, and you wonder, like, is that a guy who's just kind of he's going through the game plan and he's not maybe seeing that? Like, I don't understand why he didn't change things. And if it was more of a collaborative effort, and I have no idea what goes on inside Heritage Hall with how they form an offensive game plan, but clearly Riley's in charge of that. If he had someone else who was calling plays, or if he had someone else who, like, he really trusted in there about how to form a game plan, like, he loves forming those offensive game plans and running all those plays. That's what he does. But maybe did he just get too into, like, what's worked for him in the past, and he failed to see that they made those gains? Because if he had understood that, I just think they're in a way better position. The quarterback probably doesn't get benched, and the season is probably not great, but it's definitely better than what we're seeing here. So that's sort of a big part of this whole piece here, the piece of the puzzle. And I just fail to understand why it's gone this way.
We got a text from Ryan in Leimert Park. Lincoln Riley looks lost as a play caller. He refuses to run the football. When he does, it just doesn't seem like it's ever at the right time. On 4th and 1, we're still in shotgun, which makes absolutely no sense to me.
That's just how they run their offense.
Yeah,
but to Riley's credit, like, Woody Marks did have the 3rd and 4 run in the second half, the 3rd and, I think it was 2 3rd and 4 runs, the 3rd and 6. Like, he was picking up yards on the ground in situations where
he ran the ball that drive.
They would pass it more. And then, of course, it all kind of blew up in their face as they got closer to the goal line. So he did make some adjustments, but you just wonder if it had happened earlier, would things have been different? And I sort of think they would have.
Yeah. Let's go. Jeff, class of 90. Here's my issue with Lincoln. I know there are lots, but this season he wastes time at the end of halves like he has a terrible D. Last season and 2 seasons ago, I was yelling at him to not score so damn fast, and sometimes just letting the other team score so we get the opportunity to win it, because we had the worst D in the history of college football. I don't know if that's true, but we can double check that. This season, with a great run game, we throw 50 times a game, even when everyone and their mother is yelling at them to just run the damn ball. Here's what's going to happen. Next season, Lincoln will run the ball 50 times a game, averaging 0.2 yards per run, just to spite the fans, or maybe he is just that dumb. Worst in-game coach ever. Wow. He kind of goes to a lot of extremes in that email.
I don't know about worst in-game coach ever.
Yes.
I go back to the end of that Penn State game, and this was a mistake that Miller Moss did make. You wish he wasn't in that position. You wish the defense would have gotten off the field earlier, but they didn't. He threw a bad interception that made USC not have an opportunity to kick a would-be game-winning field goal, but I felt like he handled the clock at the end of that game well. Gotten a lot of crap from people saying that they don't feel that way, but remember, USC couldn't stop Penn State, so if they had taken their timeout, say they don't convert a first down, they have to punt. Like, who's to say Penn State doesn't just march down the field and kick? Riley wanted to have the ball last, and of course Moss threw a bad interception, which was on him, which was a mistake, and I'm not trying to defend that, but this is a defensive Riley. He didn't look clueless in that moment, and his game management, we can have issues with it here and there, but, like, is there a time this season, Ryan, for you where it's like, oh, Riley really screwed up here? Like, I feel like his game management has been fine. It's just the play calling that's been
there's been a couple of things, and everybody kind of sucks at that stuff. All these guys get paid a lot of money, and they'll manage the clock poorly and things, but nothing like that. But there's just general things like, hey, you should be running the ball, you're not running the ball, like that kind of stuff. It's been just like you want to pull your hair out. We got an email from Joan, our friend Joan. She says, I'm confused. I play a lot of competitive tennis. If I'm in a match and my plan is working, I stay with it. If my plan isn't working because my opponents are doing something I didn't expect, or we're just losing, then I have to figure out what I need to do to change it so I have a chance to win. Otherwise, I will lose. Why can't a football coach like Lincoln Riley do that? It isn't rocket science. If what you are doing isn't working, then you have to have another plan or two. Is it ego? Is it lack of ability, lack of knowledge? Is it fear, stubbornness? She sent this to Coach Hyde, but we didn't do a show this week, but she wanted, so I'll do it here. What do you think Coach Riley can't change? Why do you think he can't change what he's doing in order to put his team in position to win? If you're losing, then you have nothing more to lose than to try something different.
I mean, he did totally change everything in the second half offensively against Washington, and
yeah,
it worked until they didn't score that touchdown at the end. And then they didn't score that touchdown at the end. They had two chances in the fourth quarter, of course. But he ran the ball a lot more. So even he, for as stubbornness he is, saw that he needed to make a change. So it's not like imagine if they threw the ball at the same rate they did in the first half. Then I think that email would make a little bit more sense. He has changed, but maybe the question, instead of like adapting in-game, why didn't he adapt before the game? That's fair.
Yeah. I think sometimes coaches want to win like their way also. Like if you're a fan, I mean, maybe you want to see them throw or like whatever, you have a favorite player, but you just want to win the game. But I think sometimes the egos get involved and it's like you're proving a point. I mean, I think we even see this with guys like Lane Kiffin, where it's about the play call, like when he's holding his hand up as the pass is being thrown because he knew he drew up something right. It was against the right defense. He got the matchup he wanted. The play is being executed. And so he made all that happen. And they haven't scored a touchdown yet, but he knows it's going to work. And that's like he gets joy out of that. And I think sometimes coaches just want to do it like, I was up till 3 a.m. and I figured this out and I want it to work. And so they go into the game plan, Joan, and, you know, they're doing what they're doing and it's not working, but they came up with it. They're pretty damn smart. So it's got to work. Like there's some reason it's not working. We're going to make it work. And I think they tried that for the whole first half until you get to halftime. You're like, why the hell did you throw it 30 times? You hand it off to Woody Marks 8. And like, okay, now we're going to run the football. So I think a lot is ego and stubbornness. That would be my guess.
And that works when you have an all-star team, but when you have an offensive line that's up and down and a quarterback who's not Caleb Williams, like you can't really afford to just do that. So maybe that's a part of it too.
We have another, this was also for Coach Hyde. I had a dentist appointment. We couldn't do the show, so my apologies. But Sir Eric of Troy, he was like, so this was for the coach, but we'll put you as the coach, Connor. Please tell us what you think a one-on-one conversation between Lincoln Riley and his athletic director, Jen Cohen, would sound like on Monday morning after this loss. And then secondly, if you were UAC's head coach for 1 week, what would the first thing that you would change? Excited to hear your answers.
I think it would sound similar to the post-game press conference, the conversation, like we're close. We've been in a position to win all these. There's progress. We're going to keep doing what we're doing outside of the quarterback. But that's sort of like that's how he defends it publicly. And, I mean, what other options does he have to defend things privately? Maybe he'd acknowledge more like, hey, we made some mistakes. But I think it would sound pretty similar to the post-game press conference.
Yeah, and I think if you're the athletic director, you don't have a lot of power as far as you can't threaten to fire him. You can't fire him. You owe him $90 million. So you're the biggest for a coach, and Nick Saban has said this, I think, like on game day and stuff. Like if a player's screwing up, bench. Like that's the biggest power you have. Like guys make money or whatever. They want to play. So if someone's not performing, Nick Saban says you can bench him. Jen Cohen can't bench Lincoln Riley. He's golden handcuff. There's no way they can get rid of him. So I think it would be asking stuff like, why did you throw it 30 times and only run it 8 in the first half against the best pass defense and your best 2 receivers weren't in there? I think those are fair. And maybe she gets a different answer than what we get. But we always get, the kind of crappy, it just didn't make a lot of sense. It was like, it wasn't working. We wanted to run it more. Like, no, you could have run the ball more. Like, you literally made a conscious decision not to do that. So
And then if I was coach, the first thing I would change, I would go out this week when they have the off week, go out recruiting. And I know you can't talk money with recruits, but bring someone along who can, or put someone on the phone who can, and say, hey, we're going to pay if you come to USC. Like, go out and just talk money.
Hammer the recruiting trail.
Get the best players you can. Do what you do with transfer portal recruiting, because it's clear that they've been a little bit more liberal with how they use their money in that area. Go out and get the best high school kids possible. This season at 4-5, like, sure, I'd put in Jayden Maiava too, but Riley did that. So what would I change here if now, moving forward, that would be how I recruit.
Yeah, relentless recruiting to the point where it's like not staying in the office to draw plays, stay in the office to like FaceTime kids and whatever you got to do, just do it. We had a question in the chat, YouTube from Ajax. Do y'all see Jacoby's tweets? What do you make of them? What do you think about them?
I kind of forget what they were, but he didn't seem happy that Miller wasn't the quarterback. Right?
Yeah, I asked somebody what it meant. Like this first one of something, it seemed like disapproval of the decision, and then someone took a crack at Riley, and he seemed to.
But I don't know if that might have been altered. I don't know if that might not be real.
That might not have been a real one.
That part where he took a shot at Riley. So I don't think we should even talk about that, because that might not.
Okay.
That might have been photoshopped.
Well, who knows? Yeah, we saw that and it was deleted or something. And then, but he came out after and said,
"Yeah, I'm a Trojan. I'm not transferring.
I'm not going anywhere."
I think sometimes, like, he's a kid. His friend Miller is benched. Like, maybe he was frustrated, and ideally, you don't want to say something publicly like that. But like, I don't know. I don't think it's the end of the world. It's been a tough season. He's frustrated. I get it.
Hold on. We have some breaking news in our chat here on the Peristyle Podcast. We're part of USCFootball.com. We do this podcast every week, do several podcasts, but we do these live on YouTube. Today, we're actually live on Facebook as well. While we're live, in the chat, we have someone, Fat Bank, Jen Cohen, I got your buyout. So we have someone that's pledging $90 million to give Jen Cohen the option to make a change if she wants. So thank you for that. This is a binding if you put it in a YouTube chat, by the way. So I will forward your message over to the USC Athletic Department. So it gives them an option. So that's good. At least they have something.
I was wondering where you were going with that. So, okay.
My long-winded.
$90 million.
Way to go. So, he can throw insults at me if he's willing to put up $90 million to, not saying she's firing him, but she has the option. So maybe there's some more moves that she can make. But all right, we got one last one. Jeff, the math teacher in Fountain Valley. Ryan Abraham says SC needs to run the ball more. Harvey Hyde says SC needs to run the ball more. Chris Gervino says SC needs to run the ball more. Shotgun Sproutling says SC needs to run the ball more. Connor Morrissette says SC needs to run the ball more. Jerome Martinez says SC needs to run the ball more. Cody Kessler says USC needs to run the ball more. Keely Yor says USC needs to run the ball more. Every TV announcer so far this season says SC needs to run the ball more. Every Trojan fan says SC needs to run the ball more. Every USC alum says USC needs to run the ball more. My dog learns how to speak English just so he can say SC needs to run the ball more. Lincoln Riley, hold my Zima. Runs 9 times, 29. There's actually 8 runs from the running backs and 39 passes, one with a PI. In the first half, heads into halftime down 2 scores despite great field position. Keep calling him an offensive genius, though. Jeff, the math teacher.
Great email. Jeff is not happy, and he really got his point home about running the ball there. So that
is that what it was? I was a little seemed wishy-washy.
Yeah, I mean, look, as this season goes on, like even last year when they struggled, Caleb Williams was still there, and they were still putting up the points per game that you're used to with a Lincoln Riley offense. But absolutely, the offensive guru, the offensive genius tag, that's taken a massive hit this season. And can they salvage some of it with Maiava? That would be great. Can they salvage it moving forward? Like, I don't think we'll ever see the numbers that we were accustomed to seeing with Riley in the Big 12 and maybe that first year in the Pac-12 moving forward, just because the schedule in the Big 10 and just the style of play will be different. But
yeah,
if they continue to recruit it the way they're recruiting, like they're not going to get these elite players, then, I mean, new league, not recruiting as well as maybe they could. Like, it's really hard to be an offensive guru with those circumstances too. So I think there's a lot of things at play here, but yeah, he that's certainly taken a hit. And next year, if this continues with Maiava and things aren't good, like next year, if it continues, like he used to be an offensive guru, like, you know, like that's in play here.
Yeah. I mean, every year his offensive scored like 40 points a game, right? I mean, maybe one year they were just under, but he was top 3 or 4 like every year except 1 or 2. And then like this year is just like crazy bad compared to, no, it's not a bad offense, but it's just way worse than what it was. Cool. All right. Well, that's all I got. We're going to let Connor go to practice. I'm actually going to jump on Mason, Ireland, and talk with them. I know Connor did Roger Lodge, our buddies.
Yes.
Like, I love that guy.
That was awesome. Shout out Roger.
Yeah, Roger's the best, and love going on with Mason, Ireland too. It's so much fun. Known those guys for years. But the big news, and I can report, I'll let Mason, Ireland know this, that the buyout was an issue. It is no longer. So Fat Bank, if you want to, probably email me. I'll take a like 10% finder's fee or whatever, but Ryan at uscfootball.com with, send your bank information and all of that. And I will pass it along to the athletic department. And so it's so good.
I'll take a 10% finder's fee too.
That seems like a lot.
Well, they have to have some money. You know, they don't need all 90.
That's true. Yeah. Like if we
took 18,
we facilitated the 90, you guys come up with 18, we'll take the other. Well, yeah. I think that's really fair.
And when that happens, I'll be submitting my 2 weeks.
There you go. I will too. It's my business. So okay. Actually, I probably still would do it.
Yeah, me too.
It would just be fun, you know. Like
I'd just be rich.
You wouldn't really care. Yeah, just be rich.
Just have a better car.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap things up. Thanks to everyone. If you are watching live on YouTube or Facebook, talk about this breaking news, see where USC kind of goes from here and all of that. Enjoy the bye weekend. Maybe watch some other Big Ten football. Nebraska's got a bye week as well, right? So you can kind of study some tape on the Cornhuskers and see when they come to the Coliseum. 1 p.m. kickoff next Saturday. So go check that out. And, check out the rest of what's going on in the conference. It should be a lot of fun. But for Connor Morrissette, I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. And we will talk to you next time.